A meditative journey through the mystery of antimatter, why it was born with matter, why it vanished, and why you are here at all. You lie still beneath the hush of the stars, and let your breath become the breath of the cosmos. Slow, gentle, older than memory, the air around you softens until it is no longer air at all, but possibility. Now close your eyes. You are no longer in a bed, in a room, in a moment. You are before the beginning, before anything had shape, before time had meaning, before light had learned how to shine. There is no sound here, no wind, no warmth, no dark, no light. Only a quiet so complete that it cradles the entire universe before it's born. And then, from a point smaller than anything your fingers could touch, there is a flicker, not a bang, not a flash, not the roar you might expect from something called the beginning of everything, but a flicker, a ripple, a breath taken in the dark. This is the birth of the universe. This is your birth too, in the deepest, most distant way. From this flicker comes energy, not yet matter, a storm of potential. The laws of physics, which did not exist a heartbeat ago, begin to write themselves in curves and constants, setting rules not with intention, but with rhythm. The universe is still smaller than a pebble, but within it, everything that will ever be already lives. Stars are only whispers, galaxies, unformed dreams. And in the very first millionths of a second, something astonishing happens. The universe cools, not to the temperature of snow, or ice, or even fire, but just enough that energy, which had been wild and free, suddenly becomes something new, particles. And their mirror image, antiparticles, you feel it, somehow this dual birth. Like twins opening their eyes at the same instant, a proton is born, and so is an antiproton. An electron stirs into being, and with it, an opposite, the positron, perfectly matched, perfectly opposite, like left and right, like up and down, like your reflection in still water. These particles do not float apart, they do not rest, they collide, and when they meet, they vanish in a shimmer of pure light. This is not destruction. This is the way the universe breathes. Each meeting between matter and antimatter releases energy, an invisible sigh into space. This cycle continues. Birth, collision, release. A rhythm more ancient than any lullaby. And yet, for every billion pairs that meet and vanish, there is one extra, one tiny survivor dot, a leftover. The universe does not notice, but you do. Because without that one extra particle of matter, you would not be here. Nothing would dot, no stars, no oceans, no breath, no story. That imbalance, that 1 in a billion quirk, becomes the foundation for everything that will ever exist. And so, the universe expands, faster than you can imagine, stretching space itself, like dough rising in a warm kitchen. Galaxies begin to bud like blossoms on invisible branches, and the survivors, those lucky, stubborn specks of matter, start to form the seeds of stars. You drift through it now, floating on this newborn wind. The cosmos is still young, less than a second old, and already it has chosen a path, not by plan, not by purpose, but by chance or chaos, or some rule too subtle for us to see. It has chosen to keep matter, and to let antimatter go, but not entirely, because even now, in rare places, antimatter flickers back into being, like a memory trying to return. A positron here, an antiproton there, short-lived, fragile, but real, like shadows of a twin long gone. or echoes of a voice the universe still remembers. And so you wonder, if both were born together, why did only one remain? Why did matter win? The answer is buried in the fabric of the cosmos, in the tiniest shifts of symmetry, in laws that bend, just slightly, ever so slightly, toward imbalance. And though you lie still now, wrapped in quiet breath, you are made of that ancient leftover. Your body, your thoughts, your sleep itself, all built from the tiny margin that survived. You carry the flicker within you, not just stardust, but asymmetry, a story written by what was not supposed to remain. Outside your window, the stars continue to shine, and inside you, the universe still whispers, not with certainty, not with conclusion, but with a question. If antimatter is your twin, where did it go? You are floating again, drifting quietly through the cold spaces between thoughts. The stars are behind you now. The warmth of matter, familiar and full, fades gently, like the tale of a dream. You are still, breathing slowly, listening, and in the hush that surrounds you, you feel it, a shimmer, a reflection, not of light, but of reality itself. Here, in this calm and curious place, you begin to sense the existence of something strange, not foreign, not evil, just ... opposite. Not the absence of you, but your reverse. Welcome to the mirror world. It is not far away, not in another galaxy, not behind a secret door. It is layered into the very fabric of what you call real, but always slipping just beyond reach. Here, every particle that makes up your body, every proton, every electron, has a twin, a partner born at the same time, with the same mass, the same shape, but the opposite charge. You are made of electrons, but in this mirror world there are positrons, equal in weight, but carrying a spark of positive fire. You are made of protons, but here, antiprotons, humming with quiet negativity. It is not darkness, this mirror world. It is not shadow. It is light too, but of a kind that cannot survive where you are. Imagine standing in front of a lake at dusk. You raise your hand. In the reflection, a hand rises too, perfectly matched, perfectly timed. But if you step forward, your reflection does not step into your world, it vanishes. That is what happens when matter touches antimatter. The moment they meet, they cease to be, a silent flash, a perfect release of energy. No bones, no ashes, just light. And so, this mirror world exists in theory, in glimpses, in controlled moments that must be watched through glass and magnet and time. Still, you drift toward it, not with fear, but wonder. What would a person made of antimatter be like? Would they think as you do? Would they sleep? Would they dream? Physics says yes. That, atom for atom, they would be just like you. They could build a home, read a poem, stare up at the stars, wondering the same thing. But if you tried to touch them, if you reached out your hand, both of you would vanish in a burst of light. Symmetry, it seems, comes with a cost. In the early universe, this symmetry was everywhere. Every particle that formed came with its twin. It was fair, balanced, beautiful, but fairness is fragile. Somewhere, somehow, something tipped, matter lingered, antimatter faded, and yet it never disappeared completely. Today, in hidden corners of the universe, and deep within glowing labs, on Earth, we still find these mirror particles. They arrive in cosmic rays, falling like invisible rain. They appear in collisions, in spirals of magnetic ink. In places like Surin, the great ring of science buried beneath Swiss soil. Human minds chase these shadows. They build traps of vacuum and magnetism to hold positrons in place. Like butterflies pressed between panes of glass, they've done the impossible. Created antihydrogen, the mirror version of the most basic atom in the universe. And it behaved like hydrogen, exactly, beautifully, predictably, but also for only a moment. Even the tiniest whiff of regular matter is enough to destroy it. Touch is fatal. The mirror shatters, and so scientists cradle these ghost atoms, gently learning to hold them without contact, to listen without speaking, to watch without reaching. They dream, sometimes, of antimatter spacecraft, of engines powered by the purest energy known, an energy released when opposites dissolve. Just a gram of antimatter could power a city for days. But storing it is like trying to hold lightning in a snowflake. It must never, ever touch what you are. Still, the dream lingers. Because in science, even the fragile is worth chasing. You float now through this fragile dream, through a world that is like yours in every way, and yet cannot exist beside it. You imagine a forest, full of trees, with leaves that hum with negative energy. You walk among them, made of positrons and antiprotons. The air is soft, the sky is pale. It feels like Earth, but it is not Earth, not a shadow, but a sibling. Not less real, just less lucky. And as you drift deeper, you begin to feel something else, a sadness, because this mirror world could have been, should have been, but it eyes in single quotes. In the split second after the universe began, both matter and antimatter were there, matched, even pure. Then came the break, the imbalance, the flicker of unfairness, and antimatter lost. Why? No one knows it. Is one of the great questions. A question carved into the fabric of space itself. Was it a tiny difference in how particles decay? A flaw in a law, a twist in the rules of the quantum world. Whatever it was, it left the mirror cracked, and yet you still see its pieces. In positrons, in medical scans, in bursts of gamma rays near black holes, in the hush of the particle. Collider, where science listens for echoes of what almost was. The universe is a poem. And antimatter is the lost stanza. It rhymes with what you are, but sings from the other side of silence. You let yourself float backward, gently leaving the mirror world behind. It fades not in sadness, but in mystery, and as it vanishes, you carry one quiet truth, that the universe could have been entirely different, that you might have been made of anti-things, living in an antiverse, never knowing this one existed. But here you are, and there, just behind the veil, is everything you are not. Still waiting, still watching, still ... opposite. And as you return to the calm hum of matter, a question stirs in you like wind in a field. If matter and antimatter always cancel each other, how did anything survive at all? You drift now into a place where silence burns, where opposites meet not in battle, but in surrender. This is not a war zone, it is a ballroom, and the dance you are about to witness is older than time itself. Here, in this hush between realities, you begin to see it, two particles approaching, like lovers from opposite shores. One made of matter, what you are, the other of antimatter, what you are not. They move slowly, gracefully, as if they already know their ending. You expect heat, violence, but instead there is a pause, a shimmer, a final step in a dance, choreographed at the beginning of everything, and then they vanish, not into dust, not into ash dot, but into light, a pure, radiant burst, energy freed from form. Gone is the shape, gone is the charge, gone is the difference. What remains is light. Not the kind you see with your eyes, but the kind the universe uses to breathe. This moment has a name. It is called annihilation. And yet, it is not destruction, it is union. The final act of symmetry to things born from the same beginning, rejoining at last to become something else. Not nothing, but everything a photon can be. A photon, that shimmering messenger of energy, that spark of warmth on your skin, that flicker that becomes a star. This is what happens when matter and antimatter touch. They give up their separate selves to become light itself. It is the most complete kind of ending, and also the most beautiful. You float closer, not afraid, not even sad, because you understand now, this is not a loss. It is a transformation. You are watching a secret kept since the beginning of the universe, that two opposites, though they cannot coexist, can still complete each other. But now, a question rises gently in your mind, like a feather caught on still air. If every particle had its mirror, if every encounter ended in this perfect annihilation, then why are you here? Why is anything here? Shouldn't all matter, every atom, every star, every cell, have vanished long ago in a burst of light? Shouldn't the entire universe be nothing but a sea of silent photons, stretching forever into the dark? And yet, here you are, alive, listening, made of matter that somehow escaped this perfect ending. To understand why, you must go back to that first second, when the universe was still a fierce storm of creation. In that brief moment, there were more particles than stars, more collisions than heartbeats. Matter and antimatter danced in spirals, kissed and vanished, again and again and again. The sky then, if there was a sky, was not dark or light, but lit with flashes of becoming and undash becoming dot everywhere, sparks. Everywhere, silence. And yet, from that storm, somehow, not all was lost. For reasons still unknown, for every billion particles of antimatter, there were 1,000,000,001 particles of matter. That one extra, so small, so defiant, was enough. The rest cancelled out, dissolving into photons that now drift quietly through space. A relic of the first light, but the leftover matter, those orphaned ones, became the seed of everything, the stars, the galaxies, the breath in your lungs, all of it born from the tiniest imbalance. That imbalance, it shouldn't have existed. But it did, and that made all the difference. Still, the dance continues, even now. Even here, when a positron meets an electron, they vanish together. Not with a scream, but with a whisper of gamma rays. When antiprotons escape particle labs, they find their mirror in the air, and together they blink into light dot. We see it in the heart of the sun, where positrons are sometimes born in nuclear reactions. Fleeting dancers who find partners fast. We see it in medical scans, machines that send positrons into the body and detect the photons born from their disappearance. In these moments, the universe remembers. It remembers that once it was perfectly balanced, and now only fragments of that balance remain. You wonder, what would it feel like to vanish into light? Not to die, but to let go, to give up form and become a wave, a pulse, a presence, to rise beyond shape, and become the quiet energy that fuels 1,000 stars. Perhaps that is what antimatter always was, not a thing to fear, but a reminder that endings can be luminous. that opposites can meet without hatred, that difference, when embraced, can become light. Still, you are made of matter. Still, you remain. And every time you blink, you do so because of that ancient imbalance, that one extra particle, that one tiny refusal to vanish. But what tipped the scale? What made matter win? Why didn't the universe stay in perfect silence? A sea of sparks that never formed a single star. You will return to this question. You will follow the imbalance back to its root. You will float with the survivors, the billionth particles who lived. But for now, you watch the last moments of two particles touching. You see the light they become, and you feel a strange kind of comfort, because in this disappearing, there is no violence, no loss, only reunion, only a soft return to what was always possible. Two things, made from the same spark, becoming one light, not erased, not forgotten, just transformed. And in that light, you hear a hum, a song older than time. It sings, not of war, but of completion. It reminds you. Some things disappear, not because they are lost, but because they become something too vast to see. And in that gentle hum, you begin to feel it again. The weight of imbalance, that tiny tilt, that flick of difference. The question lingers, like starlight behind your eyes. What force, what hidden twist, let one extra particle survive, and turn silence into a world? You drift again, not away, but deeper, back through the glow of vanishing pairs, past the bursts of light left by annihilated twins. The air around you is not air, it is memory, cosmic memory, and something in it pulls at you. Not hard, not loud, just a nudge, like a ripple in a sleeping pond. You are returning to the moment when the universe first learned the meaning of unfair, the moment the balance broke at first. Everything was perfect. Matter and antimatter were made in equal parts. They danced, collided, vanished. A brilliant rhythm of creation and release. It should have ended there. A silent field of photons, nothing left to touch, nothing left to become. But something happened, a shift, so small, so subtle. You wouldn't notice unless you looked with the eyes of the universe itself. For every billion particles of antimatter, there were 1,000,000,001 particles of matter. Just one tiny extra in a storm of equals. You float now through that storm, watching them, matter and antimatter, meeting, dissolving, surrendering to light. But here and there you see it, that extra net, one that doesn't find its twin. It drifts, confused, alone, alive, and that is the beginning of everything. You move closer to it, this survivor. It is nothing special on its own. A proton, a quark, ordinary, if such a word can be used here. But in this sea of disappearance, it is extraordinary, because it stays, because it remains, this one tiny leftover particle, carried forward through chaos and cooling, becomes part of the foundation for every atom that will ever be. You follow it now, through the noise of young space, through radiation so dense it blurs the idea of direction. The universe is only seconds old, and yet it is already stretching, growing faster than light can travel, carving space from nothingness. This lone bit of matter, this seed, joins others like it. The survivors of the imbalance, together, they begin to clump, to drift, toward one another in tiny threads of gravity. The air here crackles with energy, not chaotic, but wild, like a fire that hasn't decided what it wants to burn. The photons left behind from the great Cancellation flood the universe with light, but light cannot hold itself together. Matter can, and so it begins. You feel it, the first tug, one particle drawn to another, not by desire, but by gravity, that slow, inevitable pull that shapes everything. Tiny clusters form, clouds of survivors, not enough to fill the sky, but enough to change it. You are among them now, floating with the first matter that will someday become galaxies, watching them drift closer, slowly, gently, like snowflakes in a still room. The universe has cooled just enough for protons and electrons to find each other and settle into hydrogen, the simplest atom, the first building block. This is how it begins, with the smallest of things. And it only begins because of imbalance, because of imperfection. You think about that for a while, that the universe, this endless spiraling cosmos, exists not because everything was fair, but because it wasn't, because somewhere, some law bent ever so slightly, some process tipped just enough to leave behind not nothing, but you. You wonder what caused it, what nudged the scale. Scientists have names for it: CP violation, asymmetry in weak interactions, baryogenesis. But these are words wrapped around mysteries at the heart of it. No one knows. It could be that, in the way particles decay, a tiny preference was written into the script, a flicker of bias buried in the quantum code. It could be that something, some unknown force or field, chose matter, not because matter is better, not because antimatter was wrong, but because choice was part of creation, and in choosing the universe, created room for difference, room for structure, room for you. You drift farther now, into a time when the survivors begin to form stars. Giant clouds collapse under their own weight. Pressure builds, heat rises, and in the heart of the first star, a new kind of flicker begins, not of annihilation, but of fusion. Hydrogen fuses into helium, and in that moment, light is born again. But this time, the light does not come from vanishing. It comes from becoming more complex, more bright, more enduring. You realize now that the story of the universe is not just a story of beginnings. It is a story of survivors. The balance broke, and from the wreckage, matter found a way to stay. And not just stay, but grow, but build, but reach for itself. You look around, you are floating, not through space, but through legacy. Every star you see, every atom you feel, every breath you take, is a descendant of that ancient imbalance. And you are the living result of a broken symmetry, not an accident, but a continuation. Still, the question hums in your chest, a quiet, persistent song. Why did matter win? Why didn't everything cancel out? Why was there something when there could have been silence? You don't have the answer. Not yet, but you are getting closer. You have seen the annihilation. You have felt the imbalance. You have followed the survivor. Now it is time to return to the present, to the quiet laboratories where scientists try to remember what the universe forgot, to the chilled chambers, the glowing screens, the cloved trails of positrons spiraling through vacuum. Because even though the balance broke, its echo remains, and somewhere in the spaces between light and silence, we are still listening, still watching, still wondering. How do you study something that vanished? How do you hold a memory made of light? In the next breath, you begin to drift forward again, toward those quiet rooms where humans recreate the birth of the universe, one collision at a time. Now you drift forward through time, past the silence of the early cosmos, past the forming of stars and galaxies and atoms wrapped into bones, and arrive softly at a place lit not by fire, but by thought. The hum you hear is not cosmic. It is human, a sound born of purpose, of circuits and cryogenics and quiet hope. You are inside a laboratory, but not just any lab. This is a place where the laws of the universe are gently persuaded to reveal themselves. You float past thick cables, glass doors sealed like vaults, screens flickering with patterns that most eyes cannot understand. The air here is cold, not in temperature alone, but in intention. Everything is calm, careful, still, because the thing they are chasing, this elusive fragment of history, must be coaxed from hiding, not captured. You follow the quiet movements of the people inside, white coats, gentle hands, not hurried, but reverent. They are not building, they are remembering, trying to call back a ghost that vanished at the beginning of time. Antimatter, it cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, but here, in this glowing ring beneath the earth, it is born again. CERN, a circle carved beneath Switzerland and France, large enough to hold the memory of the cosmos, and yet so precise it can find a particle that lives for only a billionth of a second. You drift now into that ring. It is not silent. It pulses with the rhythm of protons racing faster than thought. They are flung into one another, not in violence, but in revelation. Each collision is a question, each spark a syllable in the sentence of creation, and in those brief, bright flashes, antimatter appears, not in armies, not in clouds, but in single, delicate souls. A positron here, an antiproton there. They curve away, not toward destruction, but toward detection. Magnetic fields catch them, bend their paths into spirals, draw lines in invisible ink, and the scientists watch, not with wide eyes, but with steady ones. They know what they are seeing is the same process that unfolded in the universe's first heartbeat. You follow one of those spirals now, a positron born in a flash, spinning through vacuum to clean, for dust to still for breath. It dances briefly, elegantly, then finds its partner, an electron left in its path. The moment they meet, they vanish, and the lab glows with the light they leave behind, gamma rays. Photons born from perfect cancellation, the song of annihilation. But the scientists do not mourn. They are not trying to save antimatter. They are trying to understand it. They recreate what once was, so they can ask, why did it leave? Why did it lose? What does it remember that we have forgotten? You float above a different experiment now. This one, quieter, slower, even more precise. Antihydragen. A miracle, a whisper made solid. A single antiprod paired with a positron, held in magnetic suspension, not touching the walls, not touching anything. Because if it does, it will vanish, and they will have to start again. But for now, it holds. And in that holding, they measure. They compare its properties to those of hydrogen, looking for a difference, a flaw, a fingerprint. So far, they have found none. It is identical, beautifully so. The perfect mirror. And that, somehow, makes the mystery even deeper. If they are the same, why did only one survive? You float through a chamber chilled to near absolute zero. There is no warmth here, only the breath of magnets and vacuum pumps. It is strange to think that something as fiery as creation can be studied in a place so cold. But perhaps that is what remembering requires. Stillness, clarity, silence. You. Follow a beam of antimatter now, as it moves through layers of detection, its path revealed only by its destruction. It is always this way. Antimatter is known by the absence it leaves behind, like a ghost that cannot be held, but leaves fingerprints. In frost, still they chase it, not out of fear, not out of power, but out of wonder, because in its fragile existence, it tells us who we are not, and in doing so, tells us who we are. You drift past a chalkboard covered in symbols that curve like rivers, equations trying to hold truth the way hands hold water, and below them someone has written in faint ink, symmetry, broken, may be the source of all things. You pause, because the scientists are not just building machines, they are building metaphors. Each test, each detection is not a fact, but a question, a way to reach back into a time no one remembers, but everyone came from. The machines hum softly, cooling systems breathe, lasers align, cameras wait. It is like a ritual, a quiet prayer to the laws of physics, and still the positrons come, still they spiral, still they vanish, but each one leaves behind a trace, a ghost line, a data point, a whisper, and together these whispers form a song, the song of what the universe lost, and of what it chose to keep. You float now above the entire lab, looking down not at wires or steel, but at a dream made visible, the dream of remembering, the dream of symmetry, the dream of understanding the moment when light became matter, and matter found a way to stay. It is humbling, it is beautiful, it is unfinished. You leave the lab slowly, carrying with you the echoes of particles that lived only to vanish, but their vanishing meant something. It pointed to a beginning, and to a question still glowing in every corridor, in every spiral trail, in every soft hum of the machines. If antimatter was created in equal measure, where did it all go? You rise, slowly, gently, as if carried on a tide too ancient to resist. The lab fades behind you. Steel and circuitry dissolve into stars dot above the earth. You feel weightless, but not alone. The night sky breathes around you, not in silence, but in song, a hum beneath the hum, a field of whispers carried across space. This is not sound, it is something deeper, a frequency your skin remembers, though your ears do not, cosmic rays, invisible threads that stretch across the vast dark between. Galaxies, particles traveling near the speed of light, some born in supernova, some in black hole jets, some in places science has yet to name, and among them, perhaps, a flicker of antimatter. You drift higher beyond the atmosphere now, above clouds and storms and sleeping cities. Beneath you, the planet turns. Above you, the stars wait. You are no longer bound by ground or gravity. You are part of the listening, a witness to particles that fall not like rain, but like stories. Each one has traveled for millions, sometimes billions, of years. Some are protons, some are electrons, some, the rarest, are their opposite, antiprotons, positrons, tiny ambassadors. From the other side of the mirror, they pass through your body every second of every day, not in violence, not in harm, just in motion, through bone, through breath, through silence. Most leave without a trace, but some whisper. They strike detectors floating in the upper atmosphere. They bend in the arms of Earth's magnetic field. They leave curved trails in plastic film, in bubble chambers, in instruments drifting on the edge of space. You float beside one of those instruments now, a satellite silent and watching. Its panels stretch like wings. Its sensors face the stars. Inside it, a detector tuned to antimatter. The alpha magnetic spectrometer. You glide beside it, watching as a positron curls through its magnetic heart. It leaves a track, a ghost line of curvature and charge. Not proof, but possibility. One more in a map of meaning. For years, this instrument has floated above you, sifting cosmic dust from dark oceans, gathering the rare, the brief, the strange, and scientists below wait for patterns. They search for clusters of positrons, too many to explain by normal sources. They search for the fingerprints of dark matter decay, of forgotten stars, of mirror realms that might still breathe. And every time a positron hits, a light blinks, a number appears, a story unfolds. But the story is not simple. The sky is full of noise. Even the cleanest signal is smudged with uncertainty. Still, they listen. Still, they gather. Still, they hope. You drift farther now, beyond the detectors, into the open dark. There is no up here, no down. Only direction and distance, and time stretched so far it hums like a wire pulled taut dot. And in this space, you see them, the sources, distant galaxies with cores that spin like hurricanes of light, black holes with jets that lance across the dark, flinging matter and antimatter into the cosmos in spirals of fire, pulsars, supernova, starbursts, all of them releasing particles, some known, some strange. You drift past a supernova frozen in light. Its shockwave expands in silence. Its core collapsed into density beyond imagining. And from its heart, rays of high-energy particles spray into space, among them, perhaps, a positron, tiny, alone, but real. It begins a journey that will take millions of years. It will dodge magnetic fields, pass through star clusters, graze comet tails, and one night, long after the star that birthed it has gone cold, it will strike a detector above Earth and disappear, leaving only a number, a whisper, a maybe. This is how we learn, not through shouts, but through murmurs, not through certainty, but through pattern. You float beside another satellite now, one not yet built, but already dreamed, a mission to find antinuclear not just single positrons, but heavier pieces, antihelium, anticarbon, if found. They could point to something incredible, entire regions of space made not of matter, but antimatter, galaxies that formed on the losing side of the early imbalance, yet somehow endured. You pictured them, stars burning backward, planets where chemistry unfolds in reverse, creatures, maybe with blood that annihilates upon touch. It is unlikely, but not impossible. And so we look, and so we wait, because the universe is not just what we see, it is what might be, what flickers at the edge of understanding. You turn your gaze now to the center of our own galaxy, the Milky Way's heart, dense and crowded. Gamma rays bloom there in patterns, too symmetrical to ignore. Some say they are signals from dark matter collisions. Others whisper of antimatter, positrons born in pairs, vanishing in light, leaving only photons to speak for them. And the light says nothing clearly, but still it says something. You drift down again, back toward Earth, through layers of atmosphere as thin as breath. You feel the cosmic rays passing you, particles in motion for longer than civilization. Some came from distant stars, some came from nowhere, we know, and some, a very few, might not belong at all. They are the ones we chase, the ones that carry the memory of the other half, the vanished half, the antimatter that almost was everything, and perhaps still is. Somewhere you drift through auroras, dancing in the polar sky. Charged particles caught in Earth's magnetic arms, glowing in greens and purples. Not all from the sun, some maybe from farther still. They light the sky, they light your thoughts, and in that light you feel the question again, what if? Some of the antimatter did not vanish. What if it simply left, found pockets of space where it could survive, built stars, made atoms, told stories, stories we cannot hear, but might someday glimpse in a line of data, in a pattern in the noise, in a flicker caught on the edge of night. You return now to the earth's quiet spin, to the hum of cities, the sleep of forests, the stillness of oceans. The sky above you is full of movement you cannot see, but now you know it's there. Cosmic rays whispering through your walls, particles falling like dust from other worlds, and somewhere in those whispers, maybe an echo of a mirror world that never fully left. You lie still, listening, not for proof, but for pattern, for poetry, for the soft question hidden in the hum. If the stars still send pieces of antimatter, what else might they remember? You are falling inward now, not downward, not into darkness, but inward, into yourself, into your hand, your breath, your blood, past skin, past cells, past even the molecules that hold you together. You fall until you reach the quiet hum of atoms, billions upon billions of them, each one so small it would take 1,000,000 to span the width of a hair, and yet each one is a universe of its own. You pick one, anyone, it doesn't matter. They are all ancient, all survivors. You choose a hydrogen atom, the simplest of all. One proton, one electron, held together in a dance that's been repeating for 13 billion years. You shrink further. Now you are smaller than the electron cloud, smaller than the space between the proton's whirling charge. You are inside the atom. It is not empty, though it may seem so. It is full of possibility, of motion, of laws that bend and curl around nothing and still give birth to form. The electron does not orbit like a moon. It flickers, it hums. It exists everywhere at once, a probability, a rhythm, a whisper of presence, and the proton, a tightly wound knot of quarks and gluons, waits at the center, anchoring the atom without ever touching the electron it holds. You float between them. You feel no walls, no surfaces, only fields, only intention, and you think this is what you are made of, this emptiness, this energy, this constant motion. You, sitting still, are made of things that never stop moving, and inside this quiet motion, a memory stirs, not yours but the universe's, because once, for every hydrogen atom like this one, there was its twin. Antihydragen. You turn now, not with your body, but with your thought, and you find it, the mirror atom, not an idea, not a metaphor, but real, made not of proton and electron, but of antiproton and positron. It hums the same, it floats the same, it dances the same pattern, and yet it is not welcome in your world, because the moment it touches matter, it disappears, and so it must be made carefully, held gently, cradled in magnetism and vacuum. And that is exactly what scientists have done, in laboratories cooled to near absolute zero, in traps surrounded by silence. They have built antihydrogen, one atom at a time, each held in place by magnetic fields, never allowed to touch the walls, never allowed to touch the air, You drift beside one now. It glows faintly in imagined light, not because it shines, but because it is so fragile that your mind instinctively wraps it in softness. It is not dangerous. It is not evil. It is simply opposite, and that in this universe makes it rare. You hover beside it, watching it drift. It looks just like hydrogen, spins the same, falls the same, feels the same, but it belongs to the side that lost, and so it lives only as long as we protect it, only as long as it is alone. You feel the pull of questions around you. Why are they the same? Why is the mirror so perfect when the world is not? We still don't know. We test it, measure it, weigh it, listen to it, but the answers are delicate, hard to hear. You float now back to the hydrogen atom inside your body, the one you began with. It too is a survivor. It formed when the universe was still young, maybe in the first few minutes after matter began to outnumber antimatter. It might have lived inside a star, fused into helium, then scattered again when the star died. It might have floated through space for eons, until it found Earth and you. And now it sits inside your blood, your bones, your breath, doing its quiet work, holding you together. You think about what it remembers, not as a thought, but as a shape, a vibration. It remembers a time when it had a twin, when it was only one of two, and it remembers being the one that remained. There is no guilt in it, no victory, just being, just continuing, and you realize that's what you are too, a continuation of the 1 in a billion imbalance, of the matter that didn't vanish, of the particles that never found their opposite and so kept spinning. You are made of hydrogen and carbon, of oxygen and calcium, of nitrogen and iron, but underneath it all, you are made of asymmetry. You are made of what stayed and still. In your world, in your science, we keep building the mirror. We keep making anti-hydrogen, not because we need it, but because we want to understand, to look into the twins' eyes and ask, why not you? Why not both? You drift now through a cloud of hydrogen atoms, each one simple, each one humming the universe's original lullaby, and for a moment, you imagine a world where antimatter stayed, a world made of anti-hydrogen, of anti-water, of anti-stars. Would it look the same? Would it feel the same? Would it ask the same questions? Maybe, maybe not. But somewhere in the space between maybe and not, you hear something small, a crackle, a flash, a vanishing, a tiny bit of anti-hydrogen held in the trap touches matter, and it's gone, not with violence, not with fire, but with light. The light is measured, the data is saved, and the lab begins again. This is the rhythm. This is the science. This is the mirror, fragile and fleeting, but always worth building, because every time we see it, we learn a little more about what it means to stay, what it means to be here, what it means to be matter. You float back now, up through atoms and molecules, through cells and skin, back into the space of your body. You feel the hydrogen in your breath, the electrons in your hands, the atoms in your chest, spinning quietly, unaware of how rare they are, and yet, inside every one of them, is a memory dot of a twin, of a match, of an end that never came. You lie still now, feeling whole, feeling fragile, feeling possible, and you wonder if your atoms remember their mirror. What else does the universe still carry from the half that vanished? You drift outward now, beyond Earth, beyond atoms, beyond the tight spiral of our galaxy, where stars turn in orderly orbits like dancers who've long since memorized their steps. You are headed into the in-between, not the crowded places, not the bright ones, but the silent spaces, the regions of dark between galaxy clusters. Here, distance stretches like slow breath. Light takes eons to cross the room, and the silence is not just quiet. It is ancient. It is untouched. This is where you go to ask, could something be hiding here? Could an entire half of the universe, the antimatter half, have simply slipped into the dark? You float through the void, not empty, but sparse, not cold, but waiting. The stars are far behind you. Galaxies now appear as faint smudges on a black canvas, and even those begin to disappear. What remains is openness, possibility, the spaces where gravity is weakest, and mysteries are most welcome. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to sense, and you imagine it, a galaxy just like the Milky Way, but made entirely of antimatter, anti-hydrogen stars, anti-carbon planets, anti-people maybe, or something stranger still, a mirror world, not visible, not explosive, just separate. Could it be real? The laws of physics don't forbid it. Matter and antimatter behave the same way as long as they're left alone. They orbit, they collapse into stars, they burn with fusion, they give off light. The only difference is what happens when the two meet. Annihilation, a flash, an end. But if an antimatter galaxy were far enough away, with nothing to touch, how would we know it wasn't made of matter? The light it gives off would look the same. Its gravity would bend space in the same way. Its stars would live and die just as ours do. So how do we look for something that behaves exactly like what we already know, but isn't? You open your eyes again, still floating in the inky dark, and you begin to search not for what is there, but for what should be. Scientists have asked this question too. They look for clues in the quietest places, the gaps between galaxies, the patterns of background radiation, the tiny flashes in Earth's upper atmosphere. If matter and antimatter, galaxies were neighbors, their borders would glow with annihilation. A thin ribbon of light where particles meet and vanish. But we don't see that. The sky does not shimmer at the edges of galaxy clusters. There is no gamma-ray fire marking the line where matter ends and antimatter begins. Does that mean the antimatter isn't there, or just that it stays far away? You float farther, beyond galaxy superclusters now, into the deepest voids, places with almost no stars at all. The dark here feels different, not ominous, not cold, just reserved. It holds itself still, as if guarding something it does not wish to explain. You imagine a galaxy floating here like a lone lantern. It shines the same as ours. But if you sent a spacecraft to scoop a little of its interstellar gas and brought it back, it would be your last experiment, because when matter touches antimatter, they do not mix, they disappear. And in the disappearance, they revealed that they were never the same. So if antimatter galaxies exist, we must learn to see them without touching, to know them without knowing. You drift beside an invisible boundary. It hums with the idea of possibility. What if the early universe separated its matter and antimatter, pushed them into different corners before they could cancel each other out? One corner for us, one for them, and in the silence between, peace. It is a romantic idea, a cosmic compromise, and yet the universe gives us no evidence of it. No unusual bursts, no galaxies that flicker strangely, no matter-antimatter borders. It seems we are alone, but that kind of aloneness is not emptiness, it is mystery, because the absence of proof is not proof of absence, and science, at its heart, is the art of not knowing, of holding space for what might be, of listening to silence as carefully as we listen to sound. You float now beside a cosmic ray detector, orbiting Earth like a watchful eye. It has captured a few particles that bend the wrong way, charged in the opposite direction, rare, uncertain, but possible signs that somewhere the other half still breathes. The data is incomplete, the patterns unclear, but hope is patient, and the sky, for all its silence, is not done speaking. You look back toward the Milky Way. Its spirals stretch like arms in sleep. Its stars pulse slowly, each one a sun to someone, or no one at all. And you wonder if there is a mirror version of this, hanging just beyond what we can detect. What would it be made of? Would it have its own version of life, of questions, of longings? Would it wonder about us as we wonder about it? Or would it float in its own silence, never knowing that half of it was once part of something whole? You drift now through the background hum of the universe, the cosmic microwave background, the light left over from the first fire. It is smooth, too smooth. No evidence of matter-antimatter walls. But then again, this glow is a whisper from a time before galaxies, before stars, before the separation, if any ever happened. And so, the question remains, did the universe choose matter entirely? Or did it simply divide its children and send them away from each other forever? You won't find the answer here, not tonight, not now, but the question matters, because in asking it, you remind yourself that reality is always larger than what can be proven. You turn now, heading slowly back toward the warmth of light, carrying with you the shape of absence, a reminder that even in what is missing, there is meaning. You drift past galaxies again, each spinning with ancient grace, and you feel it again, that the universe might be keeping a secret, not to tease you, not to withhold, but simply because it hasn't finished telling the story yet. You float quietly through that story now, past hydrogen and helium, past stars and comets, past what you know, and you carry a new kind of understanding, that sometimes what matters most is not what you see, but what might be waiting just beyond sight, just beyond the reach of light, just beyond the place where matter ends and the vanished half might still be waiting to be found. You return now, not to the stars, but to the blackboards, to the minds that write the laws beneath the laws, to the quiet rooms, where the universe is recast in lines of chalk and symbols. Here, people sit still for hours, for days, thinking not of what is, but of what must have been. They do not look through telescopes. They look into equations, because sometimes, to understand the cosmos, you must listen not to its light, but to its logic. You float beside them, the theorists, the ones who hold entire realities inside notebooks. They do not speak often, they hum, tap pens, erase quietly, begin again. The walls are covered in expressions, balanced, elegant, strange. Some describe motion, some describe mass, some the hardest to write, the hardest to hold. Try to describe asymmetry. You land gently beside a board. The symbols shimmer in soft rhythm. You do not read them the way a mathematician does. You feel them like vibrations in a wire, and they sing of brokenness, not failure, not flaw, but a deliberate, delicate falling away from perfection. In the early days of physics, beauty was the guide. The idea that nature must be symmetrical, elegant, even dot, and for a while that belief held true. Newton's laws, Maxwell's fields, Einstein's curves, balance upon balance. But then came the particles, the strange zoo beneath the atom, quarks and leptons, neutrinos and boson, matter and antimatter, and with them rules that held. Until they didn't, you drift beside an equation describing the weak force, the force that governs certain decays, certain transformations, and here you see it. The break. The laws are not perfectly symmetrical. Left and right are not treated the same. This is called parity violation, and it was the first whisper that the universe, while mostly fair, sometimes bends. Later came CP violation, charge parity, a deeper kind of imbalance, one that says a particle and its mirror image do not behave identically in time-reversed decay. Tiny, rare, but real. You feel it like a draft through a closed window, subtle, inescapable, and this tiny bias may be why anything exists at all. The equations grow more complex. You float through fields and functions. Each theory is a mirror held to nature, asking, what did you mean to be? Some physicists write about baryogenesis, the process by which the early universe may have favored matter not by force, but by imbalance woven into the rules themselves. Others imagine new forces, new particles, new layers of law beneath what we can measure. The standard model, the great puzzle of known physics, is beautiful but incomplete. It accounts for so much, but not this. Not the vanishing of the mirror half. So they stretch, they write beyond it, into supersymmetry, into leptogenesis, into realms where laws are not broken, but rewritten. You pause beside a theorist scribbling by dim lamplight. They have drawn a symmetry and broken it on purpose, like a potter cracking a vase, so the light can pass through. They do not mourn the break, they trace it. They study the edges. They imagine what grew from it, because symmetry may be beautiful, but broken symmetry is fertile. Without it, there would be no matter, no galaxies, no you. You float now through diagrams where particles trade places, where bosons mediate forces you cannot touch, but feel in every breath. Gluons hold quarks together. Photons carry light. W and Z bosons manage the weak force, the asymmetrical one. This is the realm of precision, of decimal points that span pages. But beneath the math is something more tender, an idea that the universe was not born broken. It became that way, and in that becoming, it allowed for difference. It allowed for survival. The theorists do not claim to know. They offer models, like songs with missing verses, but they know this: the imbalance matters, because without it, everything would have vanished in the first breath. So they do not fear the cracks. They follow them, like veins in stone, like trails. In snow, each one leads somewhere. Each one says, "Here, look again." You drift past a book, its pages marked with notes. One sentence stands out. Symmetry is the language of stillness. Broken symmetry is the beginning of movement. You close the book without making a sound, because you feel it now. The beauty of the flaw, the necessity of the tilt, the way imbalance gave rise to time, to gravity, to change. Without it, there would be no evolution, no flame, no breath, and so physics bends the rules, not to cheat, but to explain. You rise through a diagram of the early universe. At its center, symmetry, pure, untouched. Then a ripple, a break, and from that matter, structure, Stars, this is not decay, it is becoming, and the theorists know they are chasing something that may never fully be caught, but still they chase, still they write, still they rewrite, because every new equation is a doorway, and every doorway might lead to the truth we haven't yet asked for. You leave the chalkboards now. The symbols fade, but their rhythm stays with you, a rhythm of laws that learn to sing by not being perfect, and you realize the universe didn't follow the rules. It made its own, and in doing so, it made you. You are the result of a rule rewritten, of symmetry gently broken. You and the stars, and the voice reading this, and the breath between each line, all born because something small refused to be even. You drift into stillness, carrying that knowledge like a small flame in your chest, and you wonder if broken symmetry made the universe. What question does it still leave unanswered? You return now to the place before the first flicker, not backward in space, but in meaning, not through light years, but through questions. You close your eyes and everything slows. The stars fall silent. The particles hush. There is no heat here, no motion, only thought, stretching like a thread back to the moment when the universe decided something without telling anyone why. And the question rises again, not loudly, not sharply, but gently, like fog on a quiet lake. Why are you here? Not you as a person, not even you as a planet, but you as matter, as presence, as something that did not vanish. Why does anything remain? Why didn't everything cancel out? Matter met antimatter. They were equal, they were paired, they should have disappeared together, becoming light, becoming energy, becoming memory, and yet a fraction remained, a billionth, a margin, an imperfection, and from that, everything. You drift through that thought now. It wraps around you like a warm question with no need for an answer. But still, you want one. You follow it through galaxies, through atoms, through the hum of science and silence. What caused the imbalance? What made matter win? Theorists write. Models, experiments chase shadows. Particles are smashed together to recreate moments that happened once and may never happen again, but the truth is still distant, still soft, still folded into the seams of existence. Some say it was a quirk in how particles decay, a slight preference for one direction over another. Some say it was a hidden symmetry that broke itself to create form. Some imagine new fields, new particles, new forces that tipped the scales in the first second after time began. But even these ideas do not say why. They only describe how, and so the question remains, why this? Why here? Why you? You drift now into the quiet between answers, a stillness that doesn't need solving, it just needs holding. And you begin to feel something deeper, not knowledge, but presence. You are here, that's all. That's everything. A universe where all matter was lost would be elegant, balanced, but empty instead. We have this one, imperfect, asymmetrical, full. You look at your hands. They are made of stardust, yes, but also of survival, every atom. In you is a leftover, a remainder, and not just a random one, a chosen one, not by a being, not by a mind, but by physics, by chance, by some sliver of the rules that leaned just slightly in your favor. You think of everything that came after, the cooling, the atoms, the stars, the galaxies, the molecules, the cells, the breath, the thought, the wonder dot, all built on that slight preference for matter, a preference that is still unexplained. And that is where loneliness lives, not in the silence, but in the not knowing why we were chosen to remain. You drift through the background radiation. Again, the microwave echo of the beginning. It is smooth. Too smooth. No signs of antimatter zones. It tells you the imbalance was universal, not regional, not localized, a global choice, but made by what? Physics doesn't answer that. It shows you how. It lets you model it, test it, predict it. But the reason, the root remains silent. You enter now the space of dreams, where questions are not solved, but softened, where logic becomes lullaby, and you hold the question like a sleeping child. You don't need it to wake. You just need it to breathe. What if the universe chose matter because it wanted to become more than energy? What if it needed the imbalance to create time, to create space, to create memory? Symmetry is rest. Broken symmetry is motion, is story. You are the story that imbalance allowed, not random, not accidental, but emergent, like music from a single note, like a forest from a single seed. You are here because something leaned ever so slightly toward becoming, and the becoming has never stopped you. Drift past the edge of the visible universe. The stars thin, the galaxies grow faint, but the question grows clearer, not in answer, but in shape. It is not a puzzle, it is a mirror, and in it you see not what you lack, but what you are. You and everything you love, everything you see. Everything you will never see are the long echo of the universe's first refusal to cancel itself. You exist not because matter is better, but because matter remained, because in the great unmaking, some particles did not find their twin, and instead of vanishing, they built dot stars, planets, water, life. The loneliness of the question is also its gift. It reminds you that the answer is not always the point. Sometimes the asking is enough, because in asking you remember that this world, your world, did not have to be, and yet it is. You drift back now toward your body, toward breath, toward sleep, and the question drifts with you, soft, weightless, still glowing. Was the universe always meant to choose you?